my esteemed honor and privilege to introduce you to your new mayor, Jason Cox.
Thank you. And wow, obviously a big thank you to Sean and Nicole and Jim for believing in me enough to come out here and stand up and say such nice words about me. I also want to thank all of you for being here today. It's nice to see so many of you in the room whom I've known for many years, and some whom I haven't even had a chance to meet yet. For the benefit of all of you who are here or watching as we stream this live online, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Jason Cox. I was born in a very small town in northern Ontario. My father was a machinist at an iron ore mine. My mom was a waitress. When I was just 6 years old, my parents divorced and my mom and I moved west to Calgary. It was just her and I against the world. We moved often in these early years, usually living in social housing or with roommates, and I watched as she worked. As she worked so hard to provide a better life for me. When I was about 11, my mom went back to school and became a registered nurse. My mom is my hero. From her, I learned to get up every day, put one foot in front of the other, and never stop working to improve. When I was 16, we moved to Salmon Arm, mostly because I'd fallen in with the wrong crowd, and to be honest, was making some pretty poor life choices. I wasn't super excited about moving from a big city to a small town, but my mom wanted to give me a chance to start over, a fresh set of scenery. It was the best decision she ever made for me. She couldn't have predicted it, but it was there that I made new friends, one of whom invited me to a political meeting. At that meeting, I was able to just express some ideas. As a kid, I was full of opinions. And they got written down, and they got turned into policy resolutions. I didn't even know what a policy resolution was. But the local riding association sent me to the provincial meeting, the federal meeting, where I, as a 17-year-old boy from small town BC, got a chance to influence the public policy agenda of the governing party of Canada at the time. And I was hooked. I worked hard for the party as a PC youth and even went to work in Ottawa at 18. I worked in the office of Thomas Sidden on Parliament Hill and got a chance to see firsthand how government works. I actually came here to Penticton next in the 1993 federal election, and I worked for a woman many of you probably know, Sue Irvin. And in that election, I made friends that I still rely on today, leaders of this community. I stayed active mostly in party politics after moving to Kelowna, which is where I earned my degree in history, politics, philosophy, and economics from UBC. I started my family after university. My kids are here somewhere. My ex-wife is here somewhere, and her husband, Matt, and Amanda, nice to see you. Thank you for being here. I started my family, and I also started my entrepreneurship. I learned a lot in Kelowna, but I never really felt at home there. After starting my career as a business banker with RBC, I was actually recruited by Valley First to move here to Penticton. I immediately fell in love with this city. I had never felt so at home in all my life. I rented a small apartment from Bruce and Lynn Shoney on Front Street, and I thought I was in heaven. Half a block from the beach, half a block from work. My commute usually involved having to wait for one or two cars before I crossed the street. But I took that first year to focus on my kids, and on my job, and on myself. In 2005, I wanted to get active in the community, so I ran for a position on the Chamber of Commerce Board. There, I've been able to build a strong network and also continue that passion for public policy. In my 13 years elected to the Chamber Board, I've been lucky enough to be named president 3 times. I've learned leadership in a proper governance model, and I've honed that governance model and my advocacy skills by being only the third person from Penticton to sit on the board of the BC Chamber of Commerce. The two who went before me, Gus Boersma and Jared Frederick. Talk about standing on the shoulders of giants. Locally, I've been able to bring that knowledge of governance, advocacy, and my network to other community organizations. In the process, I've worked with the people who are working every day in the committees and not-for-profit societies to make life better in Penticton. And all of that experience I've just told you about is what has led me to this day right here. And now that I've had a chance to tell you some of what I've done, let me tell you what I want to do. I want to be mayor of Penticton. Worst kept secret in Penticton. Why not run for council first, I've been asked. Because I believe there are duties that come with being a mayor that are exactly how I can best help this community. The mayor is the spokesperson for the city. Penticton needs a mayor who is a strong advocate for its people. Penticton needs a mayor who will fight for jobs, investment, and social justice. Penticton needs a mayor who has the understanding that while running a government is not the same as running a business, there are business principles that apply. Business principles like doing proper due diligence on proposals and contracts, having a positive, consumer-friendly approach, budgeting and living within your means, the ability to set a strategic plan from 30,000 feet and direct operations to deliver, and then use that as the basis for review, measure, and the plan to move forward. And finally, that stability, consistency, and predictability are just as important as bold decisions, growth, and delivery. One of the important issues we will be facing going forward is public safety. We need to take our city back from the drug users and petty criminals who drastically change our town. We need to work with the authorities to establish clear expectations and hold them accountable. We need to review the money we budget for public safety and ensure that we are getting the services we're paying for, and identify the gaps in service. I'm not saying the police are the problem. I'm saying let's find out what they need to do their job. And it goes further. The mayor of Penticton should have a strong network and be able to collaborate with other municipal leaders who are facing the same problems in their communities, and sit on the corner of the desk of the Attorney General of BC and make sure that prosecutions actually lead to meaningful convictions. I've been at the table in many meetings in the community related to public safety. The truth is, we know mostly who the bad actors are. In order to meet what must be ambitious targets for crime reduction, we must begin taking action where we know the problems exist. The analysis has been done, the data has been compiled, the response has been measured, and the problem has been downplayed for far too long. Data and numbers will only get you so far. You also need the guts to deal with the moral imperatives of government. What matters at the end of the day, beyond the metrics, beyond the reports, is that the people of Penticton feel safe in their homes, in their workplaces, in the streets, parks, and beaches. Now I want to be clear and separate criminal activity and addiction. Criminal activity and open drug use from homelessness and addiction. Not all homeless are criminals. Not all addicts are troublemakers. After years of working with and talking with the societies on the front lines, I can tell you that we have a portion of our community that is vulnerable and truly needs assistance. How we treat our most vulnerable says a lot about who we are as a community. Now, what a lot of you might not know about me is that I'm actually a brain injury survivor myself. Thanks for the pity applause. I often say, though, how fortunate I am that my injury was the result of a car accident, and that insurance was able to help me recover fully. or mostly phony anyway. There, but for the grace of God, go I. It's an expression that means it can happen to any of us. I have been to the weekly Partners in Community meeting, where many of our agencies who work with the vulnerable citizens of our community come together to discuss cooperative case management and opportunities for assistance and cooperation. I can tell you that not only is our homeless population, for example, growing, it is aging. These agencies are chronically short on funds, short on staff, and short on time. The Mayor of Penticton needs to meet with them, hear their challenges, have an open discussion with the community, and create made in Penticton solutions, and then go advocate for those solutions. And when I say advocate, I mean fight. I mean fight to fill the gaps in service that exist, gaps that children and senior citizens and whole families are falling through every day. Another huge issue facing our community is what I refer to as affordable living. Too many people are finding the cost of living to be a challenge. Too many seniors and people on disability with fixed incomes are having to choose between buying food and paying their bills. Too many people are having to sacrifice opportunities for their children just to keep a roof over their heads. Affordable living is not just about affordable housing, but about the number and amount of fees, charges, and rates that are piled on. Some of these are beyond the direct control of municipal government, and some are not. First and foremost, affordable housing is a spectrum. It's not just about people being able to find a place to rent. That's more of a symptom than a cause. The cause is the rising price of real estate, and the challenge that many people face in even getting into home ownership. Vacation rentals in many cases are not an indication of greed, but rather necessity. People who are renting spare rooms in their house are not doing it because that's how they like to meet people. They're doing it because that's how they afford their mortgage or their rent. The surest way that we can help reduce both of those is by influencing supply and demand. We need wise growth, not just smart growth. We need to understand that densification and infill is appropriate in some areas, while carriage homes and suites are important in others. We need to help people afford a residence, and we also need to help them afford their bills. Now, the city owns its own utility, and that is an asset. But I've looked at the numbers, and I can tell you that in some cases, utilities paid by renters are keeping taxes low for people who own property who don't even live there. In some cases, residential property taxes are covering the cost of business taxes in order to attract business. What we need to do is open up the books and make sure that we are allocating properly, fairly, and equitably. Of course, affordability is best countered with opportunity, and with my experience as a business banker and a business builder in this city, I see tremendous opportunity for jobs and prosperity. I understand that the key to a strong economy is helping to foster and grow local small business. I know that we can help improve the city's economic development approach to create real opportunity for real employers in Penticton. In recent years, I've served on the Economic Development Committee, and I've been part of the tremendous work done to gather and understand the data. One of the things that's come out of that department in recent years is a resource called Start Your Okanagan. I think we've only touched the tip of the iceberg with that opportunity. Currently, it's a job portal, which is great, but what if that could also be a portal for local businesses to connect with each other, place bids, win contracts, and draw bids from other communities? Imagine a city that's a hub for opportunity and connectivity, where resources can be shared and knowledge can be leveraged and multiplied. It's also time to improve our approach to economic development that goes beyond outdated economic incentive zones and business tax multiplier schemes. I was at the table when economic incentive zones were first conceived, and I lobbied the council of the day to adopt them. That was way back in 2008, and you might remember that the world economy was kind of failing at the time. Well, guess what? Markets have recovered. And this government still clings to EIZs like a dogma. There comes a point where after 10 years, it's not an incentive anymore. It's an expectation. It's time to innovate. Another area of improvement lies in living up to the picture that we present as a destination to do business. Penticton has frequently been named one of the top cities in the country to be entrepreneurial. I believe that comes down to the ingenuity and creativity of the people who live here, who, if they lose a job rather than travel up north or move completely, look to create an opportunity for themselves. Unfortunately, I've heard too many stories of businesses, festivals, events, and investments that have been promised great things at face value, only to be met with the reality of moving goalposts, poor communication, and broken promises. This is not what I referred to earlier as sound business practice. This is not the reliable or consistent approach to service delivery that inspires trust in someone looking to invest in our community, open up a business here, take up residence here, or even visit you. Many candidates for public office will talk about bringing jobs here. Every community is hoping to land Amazon, or Google, or Disney. We'll talk about tech jobs. Well, I'll tell you that it is by growing our own tech companies that we will prosper. If we make it easier for an entrepreneur to build the next Club Penguin, that is how we will get Disney. It's just like this beautiful building that we're standing in today. This remarkable blend of history and progress, built by a family that pioneered the BC wine industry before there was a BC wine industry. An entire industry has grown from the vision of Harry McWaters. And not just the wine industry, but the corollary industries: tourism, beer, food, technology, soda bottle. Well, who is the next Harry McWaters? Or Jim Preston? Or Pat and Ron Dick? The best thing we can do as a local government is lift all boats in this harbor and see how far they can go. Finally, this leads me to transparency and accountability. For all of my involvement in city committees and community groups, one of the most disheartening things I watched repeat itself over the years, over different administrations and councils, has been a practice of projects and deals conceived in the shadows and behind closed doors without public input, many of which have crumbled in the light of day. I believe that it is this practice that has led to a lack of trust for many residents, businesses, and visitors alike. I believe in part that this practice, coupled with a culture that seeks to divide this community as commercial versus residential, or young versus old, or rich versus poor, or resident versus tourist, is what has divided this community and led us to a place where hundreds of residents met on the street with placards and megaphones. That was a dark day in the history of Penticton. My friends, the way out of this situation is for the city to provide open, steady, objective planning that doesn't just chase change for the sake of change or chase shiny objects, but prioritizes goals, communicates process, and listens to feedback. Friends, it's time for a fundamentally different approach to government in Penticton. If you want more of the same, keep electing the same people. If you want real change, elect me as your mayor. Many candidates, past and present, will speak about the issues, and that's easy to do. They'll give you a list of what needs to be done. Well, as Margaret Thatcher once said, don't tell me what, I know what. Tell me how. My education and experience helps me be able to stand up here today and in this election and talk about the how. To talk about solutions, not just problems. How we actually hit the ground running after October 20th. To prioritize both our challenges and our opportunities. This campaign will be about solutions, and I look forward to the next 58 days of talking with the community about how we elevate and strengthen our Penticton. Now, as I said, some will say that I should be on council before I run for mayor, but almost every person that I have met over the past year as I've gone out and knocked on doors and visited businesses and hosted town hall meetings tells me different. If council is the training ground for the mayor's chair, I don't want to train in that system. I want to change that system. It's long past time. Help me bring real, purposeful change to City Hall.
Thanks, Jason. Just a couple last things before you guys leave. Jason and everybody here, we would like to thank Time Winery for having us, and Nathan from Nonstop Productions for the assistance today. and thank all of you. And there is sign-in sheets just on your way out. If you guys can put your name down, if you want to help, volunteer with Jason's campaign, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for coming.
That made the community less safe. And when it could have been controlled in a safe environment under a liquor license on site. It also bankrupted the event, which, you know, I never met the man who was putting the event on. I'm not his advocate, but I do know that a number of local businesses that never got paid because he never made the money he needed to make off that event. Now we have an empty festival grounds, a populace that is has a bad taste in their mouth around festivals. So it's going to be a challenge to even bring one here again. And what it ultimately comes down to is if someone is led along a garden path to the point of no return and then given a no. What I learned as a business banker is sometimes it's better to give a quick no than a long and qualified yes. And when you stick qualifications on renting it, you make it unrealistic and possibly jeopardize the project. And I think that's a really good example of where that happened.
Are you hoping that a couple new councillors are elected so you won't be a lone wolf, or you don't care?
You know, I'll work with whoever gets elected. In fact, I admire, you know, the longevity and service of some of the people around the table, and I know all of them personally, and I speak highly of anyone who gets into government. I think some of them are frustrated even by the process that I was referring to myself earlier. This sort of idea that when you get elected, you are trained and shown the ropes of this is how we do it. Rather than being allowed to work in an environment where we say, how can we do things differently and better and more effectively.
You mentioned your mom. Can I get her name?
Diane Gervais.
Okay, Diane Gervais. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Jason, locals supporting locals, alternative media. Just want to get this one out because we know it's going to come up. It was the whole Snaha fight that went on. Yeah. So, what was your goal from forming the park, like when it came to the park?
Right.
Because I remember talking with you. For you, it was all about the development.
Yeah, I'll answer for you.
Yes.
For me, what the Trio Marine Group situation was that the city put out a tender for someone to take over operations of the marina and improve it. And Mayor Ashton was quite broad in what he said. You know, we can envision many things, and so the proposal that came forward ended up being, you know, a marina improvement that included a water slide component. Now, at the time I was president of the chamber, and the chamber supported the concept of a marina improvement. We can see today the reason and the need for the marina improvement is now the marinas are falling apart to the point where we're having to pay out of the public purse to have them repaired. What was not within my scope of knowledge, because I wasn't in the back room, I wasn't at the table to know that the deal that was being written was not well written, and it was not well communicated, and it was everything I talked in my speech. It led to this division of young versus old, for example, and drove divisions in the community. And I think people have grown distrustful of a government that does a deal in behind the scenes. And to be fair, this deal was done before the last election, and while Mayor Jacobite was the councillor, and it was carried forward. So we need to address things differently. That's what I've learned from that. I know that that the insult to injury on this is that not only did we not have Trio be able to fulfill their vision of creating an improved marina site, and not only are we now paying for it, but we've somehow ended up hiring one of the principals back to do the work. It's a boondoggle that you can't even wrap your mind around. And honestly, it's what I talked about in my speech. It comes back to proper due diligence in the first place, understanding who you're doing a deal with, making sure that the deal makes sense, and then communicating that and having a discussion with the community. When I attended the meeting where they voted in favor of that proposal, the naysayers, if you will, got up and spoke, and council heard them, and then almost immediately voted the other way. And it had been a series of city hall meetings like that in the weeks leading up. And when they voted in favor, an older gentleman at the back of the room screamed, yelled, "You're not listening to us." And when I look back, I know that was the rallying cry that led to the protest in the street. Government has to listen and understand and follow its own rules and follow its own processes and communicate clearly with the citizens. And I know they learned that lesson from that, and it was a hard lesson, and yet within the last couple of months, we're still finding that the boondoggle continues. So it's a huge issue.
Okay, just one follow-up question to that, then, because the Parks and Recs was formed, and it went through a lot of processing so that they determine what goes on with our parks and what those parks officially mean and everything else like that. And then we get our first one that comes up to bat was local land.
Thanks, Nate.
And they wanted to renew their lease.
Yes.
And they skipped right by the process that this team spent so much time building up, and they skipped around it, and the council didn't tell them that they must follow this process first. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are that maybe they haven't, with all the mea culpas from the mayor's chair, maybe he hasn't learned the lessons that he's mea culpaing.
So would you have them follow these procedures that are being?
Of course, that's what procedures.
Yeah, all these committees.
You've consulted with the community, and you have expectations for process. You have expectations for process. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, Scott, how far?
Yeah.
I think at the time, I don't know specifically, but I think you supported the idea of water slides as increasing business. And I quote, at a public hearing, you said this to council: "Don't be dissuaded, carry on forward. Thank you for your leadership on this." It sounds like you were all in on this. So do you regret that now?
No, like I said, I don't regret my statements or my position. I was representing the chamber, and I was speaking in strong support of what I believe to be a marina improvement with one of those water slides. This community, in the last two elections, we've heard families that are clamoring for water slides in the community. So what I actually believe is that could have been a really nice addition to the process. And without getting into the whole debate of exactly what was being affected, I'll stand by other statements I made in front of council, which is most of that proposed site that would have included water slides was actually parking lot, not parking. Right? So, but the miscommunication and the level of angst that grew out of the community wasn't even, I don't think, about how many trees or blades of grass were going to be affected. I believe it was about the politicians in the chair didn't properly listen to people or explain what was actually going on. They sat in chambers on the second floor while people rallied in the street, and that was a breakdown in communication that only fed the miscommunication. So I understood the proposal as it was presented, and I supported it. What I didn't know was how poor the deal was constructed in the background, or how poorly it was going to be delivered and communicated.
I think the other burning question people have is you weren't eligible to run the last election. I think because you didn't file your paperwork long before that. How come you didn't file your paperwork?
You know, that is a huge life lesson for me. I was pretty strongly expected to be a leading contender for council in that election. I ran a pretty strong campaign. I felt like we did a lot of good work. And at the end of the day, I wasn't successful. I came up just short. And to be honest, I was a little hurt. And I licked my wounds. And I thought, you know, the punishment of never being allowed to run again was fine by me, because I'm going to sit at home and take my ball and not do this. And I had a real crisis of character, where I thought, why do I do all the work I do in the community if I'm not going to be rewarded? And I've subsequently had a change of thinking on that. And that is that the reward for a job well done is the opportunity to do more. And so what I need to do is continue to do the work that I care about. That my whole life, since I was 16, 17 years old, public policy, making things better for the community, is the reward itself. And if the community one day feels that I've done enough good work that they want to see me do more, then I'll be elected. And so, you know, about 5 seconds and a cup of coffee after I didn't file, I immediately regretted my decision. And I did my time. I sat out the last election, I sat on the sidelines, and all I've done in the community ever since is continue to work. And you know, like I said, I took 5 seconds and a cup of coffee off. Other than that, I've been working hard for this community ever since. And I learned my lesson. I know how to file paperwork, and that will never be a problem again. And the paperwork that didn't get filed, there's nothing hidden or concerning about that. That will be posted on my website, and anyone is welcome to view it and see that my contribution. I was largely self-financed, other than some really nice people who donated that paper.
How old are you?
I am 44.
And you have four
teenage daughters. One is well, it's 18. So we have
still
14
teenage.
daughters.
Well qualified.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks.
We're good?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I ramble my answers, so you getting a video clip out of that's probably going to be really hard. Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
So I come pronto here with Locals Supporting Locals for another segment of the Heartbeat of the Okanagan. And we're here at Time Winery, located on Martin Street. They just opened probably a couple of months ago now. And Jason Cox just announced finally that he was running for mayor. So we came down, listened to his speech, which I have to say had a lot of good things to say. And I've gotten to know the man over many years now. And if you can follow through on what he said there, this is definitely going to be a race to remember here, and I hope the best for him here. So yeah, have a good listen to what Jason has to say here. And we're going to be interviewing other mayotorials if they'll meet with us, and as well as councillors. And we got some good tough questions. We will be interviewing Jason as well, because we do have concerning issues. And so we look forward to doing that. And you can find us at localsupportinglocals.ca. You can look under our videos, our articles, and find us on Facebook, Local Supporting Locals. And thank you.